Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 262.
Yeah.
262, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make
All
sure.
episode long.
All right, there we go. So this one, what a way to start. We always have these interesting. Last time I saw you corrected, like you were talking about ribeye, not prime rib.
Yeah. Well, technically, I'm pretty sure it's like the same, similar cut of meat, like comes from the same part, but they're prepared differently. So ribeye, I think prime rib is broiled and then ribeye is charred. So it's actually like on a grill.
So welcome to the Fine Dining Podcast.
Yeah.
We've decided to change our genre to another category. No, but actually, no, we're here to talk about reselling. So thank you for staying with us for the last 30 seconds, even though that sounded obnoxious, because what we're going to talk about today is why resellers quit. Now, I did some research for this. I watched, I don't know how many. I try to watch every single YouTube out there and Instagram post and social media stuff about why resellers quit, right? Because some of the times it's clickbait, right? It's like, I'm quitting eBay. And then you go on there and it's like, oh no, they're just going to Poshmark or something, right? Or, I'm done with eBay, but it's like, no, that's how they're feeling at the moment, but they're still going to keep selling. I'm talking about people that just altogether leave. And so
they find a new profession besides the greatest profession, reselling.
Yes. And some of them are just part-time and they're like, I'm done with it. So the reason I thought, and I talked it over with Mike, because, we did have an episode before that was about reseller burnout. This is not about reseller burnout. This is about people actually leaving. And it's not always because of burnout. Sometimes it's for good, even great, genuine reasons. And other times it's just not seeing, the final product, not having the end in mind, just going in and then just, going, okay, I think I'm done with this. So let's talk about some of these real quick. I need to do a disclaimer. Sorry. We may not cover everything here. So if there's something we miss, if there's another reason why you think people quit, or, you had friends, like we had friends of ours that were all about reselling. I remember one of my good friends, he would go on ride-alongs with me to garage sales. And then I ended up buying out all his inventory. And he quit. And then months later, he's like, you know what? I should have stuck with eBay. Right. So that leads us to our first point. Yeah.
And real quick in the comments below, let us know. Have you come close to quitting? What were some of the reasons that you decided to quit, or maybe scale back? Maybe you were full-time and you decided to go part-time. Maybe you have friends who've quit. What are some of the reasons that either you have considered or friends of yours have actually left the reselling field? So yeah, let us know in the comments.
So I'm just going to ask you the question for the first point. So do you find that people quit too early at times?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of it's just kind of like an impatience where, people see what we do. And a lot of times they see the highlights, right? Like we can talk about big hustles. I can tell my friends like, yeah, I bought this thing and I sold it for this much. They see things on YouTube and they kind of feel like if I go and I buy a couple of items at a store and I, go to thrift store, go to a garage sale. I've got now 5 items. I've posted them and it's like, where's the money? Where's the money? Right? Like they're waiting for the money and it's not coming, and they don't really give it enough time to develop a store, to build a store, or maybe the very first time they have to actually ship something, they're like, whoa, that was a lot harder than I thought. And they just give up without realizing that, it does take patience, it takes time. There's a little bit more involved with it than simply, list it, forget it, and you're going to be a millionaire overnight.
Yeah. And so you gotta kind of play the long game, even if you're just doing it as a side hustle. I can't tell you how many times we receive DMs, and maybe some of you have sent them to us, or maybe you've been thinking about it. Hey, Orlando. Hey, Mike. I have 30 items in my store. I've been going to garage sales. I've been listing on eBay. I've been checking comps, and I haven't sold much. I've sold like 2 over the last month. I don't know if this reselling gig is for me. And I comment back and I said, hey, listen, and we've done this story so many times, right? If you go into a store, right, and you're looking for a specific item. So let's say you're looking for a 49ers hat, right? And you go into the store and there might be 25 hats and they may be all NFL hats, but not any of them is a 49ers hat. What are the chances that that store is going to end up getting your business? Probably not at all. Right? Because they're looking for that item. At the same time, too, right? You also have that when you're first starting, like your feedback isn't that high, right? So it takes time. You got to build that feedback. You got to build that trust with the customers. So they're like, okay, I want to buy from this individual. They have a good track record, right? So I find a lot of people, especially, you watch like a Gary V thing about garage sales, or maybe you listen to one of our podcasts, or you watch a YouTuber and you go out there like, wow, they made a killing. You got to understand. And Mike and I do try to keep it real, but also, we have to do what keeps social media growing, right? If all we had was negative stuff, like every fail, right? People would not go like, I want to follow those guys that buy stuff for high and sell it for low.
Well, and the reality is we do win a lot, right? Like when you're, if you're sourcing,
but it took time to get there.
Right. So if you're sourcing all the time, you've learned the niche. I mean, if I compare the things I was buying when I first started reselling, I had a few really good lucky buys and things that I was able to come across. And then there were a lot of things that I look at and I'm like, I would never buy that again. Right. I learned, it took a little bit of time. But yeah, so if you've been doing it for a while, like on an average week, I'm getting a couple of really good scores. Right. So there's nothing wrong with sharing those because I don't have several fails throughout the week all the time. Like occasionally there's a fail here and there. But yeah, again, it takes time. So you got to kind of play the long run. And that kind of leads into the next point is sometimes people get bad buys right off the bat and bad buyers. So both of those kind of go together. So when you're first starting out, you might not be thinking of all the costs. You might be thinking, hey, I can buy this at, Target and it's $20 and it sells for $35 on eBay. Like I'm going to make a killing. But then you realize, well, by the time eBay takes their fees and by the time I have to ship it and the shipping costs, you might be looking at $1 to $2 profit and a lot of time and effort. And so you're buying things that don't actually have a lot of profit, or maybe you bought things and you realized there was problems with them. You didn't actually check for stains in clothes, or you didn't check. Like I did this a lot. Shoes that the soles were starting to come off, but I didn't check enough. I'm like, oh, this is a good brand. I bought it, and then I get home and it's like, oh, it's starting to separate right there. Like that was a waste of $10, So you make those bad buys, and then when you're starting out, and let's say you're starting out with $100 as capital to get into reselling, and you lose $30 on a bad buy, that's a significant like loss in your profit. And you're like, this is it, I'm out. And the same thing goes with bad buyers, right? Like if I notice it happens a lot more.
The scammers.
Yeah. Scammers to like new eBay sellers. I mean, my brother-in-law, he listed an item. He found a pair of shoes at a thrift store and he wanted to kind of do what I was doing. So he listed them for like $35 and somebody offered him like best offer of like $60. And he took it and he's like, I'm so excited. Like it sold for more. And I'm like, bro, it was the best offer. It wasn't an auction. Like they shouldn't be paying you more. And sure enough, it was a scammer, and then they never paid. And then it was like a whole thing. And he's like, well, eBay's terrible. And it's like, well, that kind of those, if you get one or two bad experiences like that, it's easy to say I'm out. And especially if the first few, you get a return on one of your first few sales, it's brutal. It's something that's like, this isn't worth it. But then to realize like that's just the odds, right? Like if you're selling 100 things, you're going to have 2 or 3 things that you're going to have returns on. You're going to have a couple bad buys here and there. And sometimes you get unlucky and that those 2 or 3 happen in your first 10 sales, or they might not happen until your 80th sale, right? So if it happens early, it's easy to become disenchanted with reselling for sure.
Well, and I wanted to add to that about the bad buys. And I had another point about too much work. Sometimes you'll watch. So I'm going to try to be as generic as possible, but you might watch somebody on TikTok, right? You watch a quick 30 seconds. They're like, I went to this garage sale and they're selling Beanie Babies for 10 cents a piece. And and they're not exaggerating. They're not saying they sell for thousands. They may go like, these are selling for $5 a piece, right? So I bought 20 of them. I should make about $100. Okay. So you're going to list 20 items to make $100, right? So you're going to spend the time, right? If you do the math, you're going to sell each of them for $5. Then you're going to get the eBay fees taken out. Then, let's say you do free shipping. So you end up getting the shipping taken out. Then you got to take the time to pick that item, put it in the envelope, whatever, seal it, put on a label, and then you're going to go to the post office, right? You're doing all that work. And eventually over time, you may be making less than minimum wage. Right. And I see this so much right now, people buying stuff for $2 and they're like, yes, I can sell it for $8. I mean, we are going to have a TikTok reaction video eventually because there's some interesting videos out there. But I saw one where it was like top 3 items to pick up for reselling. And it was plush, mugs,
mug life,
and like something like ties.
Oof.
And I would tell you
that. I tried the tie thing.
You pick up those 3 things and you might go, wow, I'm going to pay 10 cents and I'm going to flip it for $8. You will be miserable. I promise you. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But if that's all you're doing is picking up a bunch of items that you're only making $5 a piece on, you will end up miserable over time because you're going to be working so hard to make so little. And we all got to start somewhere. I mean, I started somewhere too. I had picked up mugs and I picked up shirts that, I paid for like $3 and I sold them for like 15, 20. And that was a big deal to me. But if it's anywhere in that like $7 to $12 range, that's what you're selling items for. It gets, if you keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again, you can get exhausted pretty quick. And you're like, is it really worth all the time? But if you start researching and you start looking at things more and you go, hey, you know what? Here's an item I can pay $5 and I can flip it for 50, or I can flip it even for 30 or 40. And you do like 3 or 4 of those flips, that's going to encourage you because you're like, wow, look at that ROI. But if you're always looking at the very low cost and you end up bad by like ties, those are easy to ship. But as far as the listing, like you got to place it really nice and you got to have the right lighting and it may sit for a while. And,
and like anything else, it kind of goes like something like a tie. If it's a $5 profit,
on the tie.
it's not worth it. But if you're going to make $80 on the tie, well, then it's definitely worth that amount of time, right? 100%. So same thing with shoes. Like taking pictures of shoes isn't too difficult, but they're a little expensive to ship. And, you want to make sure you've checked them right and sizing is right and all of those things. And if you're making $5 per pair of shoe, unless you're like doing Amazon and you're buying 100 pairs and it's all one listing, you're taking pictures like that's very different. Like if you're doing bulk like that, but if you're going to thrift stores and you're picking up a bunch of shoes, but you're only making $5 each, as opposed to, hey, I'm only going to pick up one pair that I can make $30 on, and I'm going to save that time. Now, again, I've talked a lot about you've got different resources, right? You've got time, you've got capital, you've got space. There's different things that factor into it. And so maybe you have a lot of time. You're like, I literally don't have any other job. I don't have any other hobbies besides reselling, and I don't have a lot of capital. I only have like $40 to spend. Then maybe it's totally worth it to take pictures of 40 different items that you got for $1 and you're going to make $5 on, because over time that'll start to scale and add up.
There has to be a leap eventually, right, though. Yep. I mean, that's going to lead to burnout. And
for sure,
it just kills me because I wish I could throw names out there, but I've watched certain people on YouTube and on social media that they continue to pick up these items that they're only making $4 or $5 on. And I'm telling you, to me, it seems like it's more for the YouTube than it is for themselves. Because I could tell you, as a full-time seller, if everything I was selling was $4 a piece, I'd be done.
Yeah,
I'd be done. I mean, there's so much work that goes into it. Now, if it's Amazon FBA and I'm sending it out to a warehouse and they're shipping and they're packing and everything, sure, that's easy because it's a one-time pack and ship, right? But if it's for eBay or Posh or any of those, you don't want to burn out. Now, this next segment's going to be about, not this next segment, but next point within about starting too early about things is going to be about full-time sellers. But before we do that, I do want to say thank you to all of you that signed up for our buymeacoffee.com/pure hustle.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I guess you can call it our Patreon kind of deal.
Yeah.
Right. Except we didn't like, I didn't like the word Patreon. I like buy me a coffee. If you really care about us, you can buy us some coffees.
Yeah. And we've gotten some new members, so we're really excited about that. And we're definitely going to be setting up probably the later half of October, a nice, meetup where we do a virtual meetup on Zoom. It's not per se extra content. We're not putting an extra, episodes up that you have to pay for. But again, it's just a good way for people who are supporting us financially to get a chance to talk with us and other supporters, right? Because a lot of times those meetups, some of the best content and some of the best information is just shared between resellers, just connecting and talking to each other. So it's a lot of fun. And the reason we're able to keep doing what we're doing is because of supporters like you. Like occasionally we get an ad that somebody will pay us to run an ad on the podcast, but it's few and far between and it's not a lot of money there. So what keeps this going is people supporting us. So thank you so much. And if you can't support us financially, you're not at a place where you can do that, or, you just don't feel like it's worth it at this point for you. Just leaving a review on iTunes makes a huge difference for us. So either one of those things is going to help us out. It's a good way for Orlando and I to know, like, hey, what we're doing, it matters. People care about it. So huge thank you to all of you who are doing that.
So this next section, right? Thanks again for buying me a coffee. Real quick, by the way, I want to say thank you to all of you who have been doing that for like it's gonna be a year pretty soon.
coming up.
So we're thankful for all of you that have been doing the yearly Buy Me a Coffee memberships. It's really been appreciated. I mean, I even think about, some of you have commented about the quality of the audio. Part of it is because of the device we have here, and this wasn't cheap.
Yeah. And even like we pay a monthly subscription to be able to edit the audio and all of that. So, yeah.
I didn't even know about that one.
Yep.
So, out of Mike's pocket.
That's right.
All right. So this next one is about full-time. And you've heard me say this many, many times, that the moment that reselling becomes a job for me is the moment I quit. Now, not saying everybody has to keep that mentality, but the difference between some resellers and others is that some resellers waited to scale their business, right? They were part-time for a long time. And then eventually they got to a place where they were making more money reselling than they were doing at their regular job, right? And including benefits. Like they did the math, they budgeted out, they said, hey, I can even afford, I'll be able to afford my medical insurance. I'll be able to still put money in retirement. All the perks and benefits that I would have had at my 9 to 5, I'm going to be able to have with reselling because I've made that much money. But I've seen the other side where it's resellers that are like, you know what? I'm done with the 9 to 5. I'm walking away, and they start right away going full time. Small inventory, not a lot of capital. And it's not to say people can't do it, right? But for me, it's I see a lot of people burn out real quick because what was one time part-time fun hobby, side hustle, treasure hunt, now it's like, I better go sourcing. I better find good stuff because if I don't, I won't be able to make enough money to pay my bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're up against the wall and you're in a really hard place.
Yeah. You have to, at that point, it makes it tough. And I think scaling it slow is a really wise choice when you're wanting to make the leap from part-time to full-time for a couple of reasons. One, you're building up the inventory, you're building up the systems, all of those things you need to be able to do that. Two, you've got the data. Was this just one season? Like if you just went through Q4 and you're like, hey, I could do this, but you haven't gone through all 4 quarters in a selling cycle, and you haven't done that for a couple of years to kind of notice trends on the items you're selling and can you actually source consistently. So I would say even more than just having like a large inventory of items and having enough capital is even just the knowledge.
100%.
The longer you do it, the more knowledge you have. Like if I'd have gone full time a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have failed. Like there's no way I would have floundered so quickly just because you can't learn the things that are crucial that you already have to know when it's life or death, basically, when you have to pay the bills. But now if I were to go full time, I'm pretty confident that I could do it. Another year of experience, I'm even more confident I'd be able to do it because I've done lots of different sourcing. I've learned what platforms work for me. I learned better ways of shipping. I've learned time management. All of those things have taken, going on 3+ years of experience to kind of get a handle on. So I get it. One of the nice things about doing it part-time and having in the back of your mind, I want to go full-time, is you can say, you know what? I am so sick and tired of this job. Every time I walk into this building, the people here, they disgust me, whatever it is, right? Like if you're just like,
office space,
right?
almost.
Like whatever it is, that's just, you can't stand it. You're not respected there. You're given too much work and no credit, whatever the situation is. As you're building up and you're watching your savings account build and you're watching your inventory build, you can in the back of your mind go, I've got my plan B. My plan B is building, and I'm just going to come in with a smile on because eventually I'm going to get to a place where I can walk into my boss's office and throw down an I quit letter, right? And you can almost have that, like, that keeping you going. So instead of like, I hate this place, you could be like, all right, I'm getting closer. And you can almost be motivated. So don't think of it as I'm just going to leave now. Like it's better to have the forget you money already ready to go. And then you're in a much better place than just leaving. And now you're struggling.
Yeah. The weight of your decisions are so much heavier when you are out there sourcing, trying to find items to flip, knowing that you better make that money right away. Right. That's a very tough spot to be in, because sometimes you may have a really good deal. You might find a local deal and you might need, if you spend $1,000, you're going to be able to flip all that, but that might take 6 months. Right. So you may pass up on that deal. So I don't know. Let us know. Did any of you just go full time that listen to us? with, no capital, barely any inventory, and just went all in, right? My guess is either one, you had a lot of knowledge and so you were able to make it work, or two, you had enough capital, you had enough, that kind of money that you could ride things for a little bit. Because if you don't have either of those, I think a lot of people, I know I've watched the video. I've seen people say, I jumped to full-time too soon. And I felt like every decision I made was going to be make or break it. And you don't want to be in that scenario. So be careful.
That's good.
All right. Now, this is more for the experienced sellers here that quit. And you see them. And by the way, the ones that I said too much too early, if you go on YouTube, I did that. I wanted to do a little experiment. If you type in like I quit reselling or I quit eBay, whatever, you find that most of the people that quit that have, and I'm not saying anything about their subscriber count, but usually because we don't have a huge subscriber count, but they're really low, which tells me they just started reselling and they just started documenting the process. And so eventually, they get to the point where they quit. And so a lot of these individuals you see that are quitting, you got to see how long they've been reselling, right? You can't take their word if it's like they've only been reselling 6 months and then they quit and you're like, yep, I'm done. You're better off watching somebody who has a lot of subscribers that walks away and understanding why, right? Sometimes they may be because, we'll talk about this later. Maybe they're making more money on YouTube than they are reselling, right? Maybe they found another income stream. Maybe it's not all negative, right? Because I find that the new sellers that walk away, it's just, lack of patience, right? In these many aspects. Again, not trying to throw shade. We're just trying to help you guys out to stay the course. All right. Resistance to change. Yeah. Man, you see this all the time, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm resistant.
This is huge. I recently had a conversation with a parent, and we were talking about schooling and all of that. And it was a tough situation because they were not a fan of technology being used at school. And I totally get it. Like, I'm absolutely 100% understanding of wanting to, protect our kids from certain technology things and not, give them, there are certain benefits to, but some things change. Like, the world looks very different today than it did 18 years ago or 20 years ago when some people were in school. And the world's going to look very different by the time the current students graduate. And so those kinds of changes that are happening, sometimes that I see that same mentality of, I don't want to adapt. I don't want to change because I disagree with certain things. Maybe eBay is doing something that you disagree with. Maybe a new platform has come out, or a new way of doing something. And you're like, you know what? I want to stick with what I know, and I'm not going to try this new thing. I don't want to at least dabble in it. And what I'm doing works. And I've seen so many people do what they do because it works until it stops working and it's too late, because they weren't willing to adapt. And we see that happen with companies all the time. The companies that are willing to say, hey, maybe we should get a website going, when other companies are like, why a website? We've got a brick and mortar store and it works just fine. And then all of a sudden, Amazon comes and shuts them down, right? Because they didn't have a website and they weren't selling their product. And we as resellers, it's the same way. Like, we might look at the world and say, I don't like these new platforms that are coming out. I don't like the social aspect of Poshmark. And not saying Poshmark is necessarily the best place to be selling.
I don't like it, but okay.
No, I agree. I'm saying, but we got to at least try it and recognize that type of selling is going to in some way influence the reselling platforms as the future goes. So 10 years from now, I'm sure reselling platforms are going to look very different than they did back when eBay was just auctions. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you're kind of stuck on, no, this is how I resell, and you're not willing to say, you know what, I'm going to try another platform, or I don't like this change that's coming, but I'm going to jump on and figure out how to make it work, because maybe 7 of the 10 changes that happen or the new technology doesn't stick, but one of them's going to. When it does, it's going to be revolutionary, and you either rode the wave or you missed it.
Yeah, I mean, I see it all the time. All you have to do is go into one of those Reddit forums or go into one of those, there's certain, I would say, eBay media out there that it just, you go in the comment section and it's all like, I remember when eBay used to, and I'm done with eBay. And you can go into these really dark places where people are just angry, and you can tell they're probably not reselling anymore. Right. I mean, the stuff they're talking about and complaining about was stuff that happened 5 years ago. Right. They don't like the fact that fees are higher. They don't like the fact that, the tier structure for stores have changed. They don't like the, item specific. This is one of those things. Hey, all of us can't stand it. I don't know one single person, not one, that says, I love eBay item specifics. No one. And obviously eBay has not read the room, but No one has said they love it. But guess what? We all have to adapt, right? Especially me, full time. I have no choice. I have to do that to be on that platform, right? And I'm not going to leave eBay because eBay has 3 times the size of every other platform outside of Amazon as far as in the secondary market of buyers. And so for me, it's like you need to adapt. And also, let's talk about sourcing, right? Because, things change, right? I can't buy the Tommy Bahama shirts that people were buying 5 years ago and make the same amount of money. And what I see a lot of people doing is they keep buying the same stuff. And I'm guilty of this too. Don't get me wrong. I still will pick up certain things that, sold well years ago. And then I list it and it just sits. And I'm like, why did I pick that up? But if you do that on a massive scale, you just keep, you're like, I remember when this was big. Or you're like, hey, these are money makers, but you're not checking the latest comps. You haven't done your Terapeak research. You're just going on, hey, this is what I've always known will sell. If things are changing, let's say the price drops, right? So for example, I brought up Tommy Bahama, but the other day I talked about Sperry topsider shoes. There was a time when those sold for good money. Like you could pick those up for like $5. You can fill them for 50 to 60 now. You're lucky to get even 20. Right? Maybe if you get like the Gold Cup series of those shoes, you can get maybe 50 to 60. But if you're still picking them up, there's a reason why they're still at the thrift and no one's buying them. It's because they're not selling anymore, right? Resellers know, right? And so there's certain changes that need to take place. And if you're sourcing the same stuff consistently that you were sourcing 10 years ago and it's not selling and you're just hoping that it will, it's going to eventually lead to burnout.
Yeah. And one of the burnouts that people see is that they don't see a steady increase in their sales and scaling of their business. And there's kind of 2 ways that businesses can scale. Sometimes it's a long, slow arc. And then all of a sudden, once you can scale and you get the warehouse and you have employees, you tenfold, 100-fold. And that can certainly happen. But a lot of times, if you're just doing it on your own, you're trying to resell, you're going to see a lot of growth in the early years of doing it, learning new niches, learning things, and then you kind of have to fight for growth after that. You can make some contacts and scale like crazy, but if let's say this year I made 2 contacts with wholesalers and now I've got these great contacts and I've been able to make it so I'm making $100,000 a year reselling. I'm like, well, last year I made $10,000 reselling. This year I made 100. Well, I'm going to be able to make $1 million the following year because every year it's going up, that much. And you can't look for a perfect linear growth. I think a good example of that is, I often mention like weightlifting and dieting because I think that those kinds of things have a lot of analogies you can use for economics. And one of the things that I notice people who start getting into weightlifting, they can get discouraged easily. And one of the reasons a lot of people start taking like steroids and things like that is when you first start weightlifting, that first year, you get close to 40 to 50% of your total genetic muscle mass that you can put on, right? So people can gain 15 pounds of muscle in a year, their first year of working out. The second year, they're only making maybe 20% increase on what they had before. So maybe they made 15 pounds of muscle the first year. The second year, they might make maybe 4 to 5 pounds of muscle if they're lucky. The third year, they're getting maybe 2 pounds of muscle. Then to get the next like 5 pounds of muscle or 4 pounds of muscle, you might be looking at another 5 years. It's like slows down incrementally. And so that people get discouraged because like, wait, my first year I gained 15 pounds. And my second year, I only gained 7, but now I'm only gaining like 2 pounds of muscle in a year. Like something's wrong here. And it's like, well, sometimes it's not perfectly linear. Sometimes you're going to get to literally a cap of what your current system can do and you will have to scale a certain way. Maybe it's a warehouse and employees in order to see that continual linear growth, or you're going to kind of plateau. And if you realize that your plateau isn't enough to sustain full-time living, then maybe it's not for you. But if you get to a point where you're like, I'm making a lot, but I want to keep scaling, you're going to eventually reach your max. You're going to reach the point where I cannot sell anymore and source anymore on my own. And that can cause a lot of frustration for people. And if they're not willing to make that jump into the next thing, which again, that's very scary because your chances of failure goes up, right? Risk reward. And so I think the kind of the takeaway is you can't always expect linear growth. You're not going to always be able to expect, I'm going to continue to grow 25% year over year for my previous year's sales. You might get lucky and see that one year, and then the next year it might be a 5% growth, right? So that can cause discouragement, cause people to walk away and say, I failed in reaching my goals. And I even know, like, for instance, Home Depot during the pandemic thing that happened during that first lockdown, holy cow, they were stuck at home. They were buying stuff to do. And it was funny because Home Depot sales like just went through the roof. And then all of a sudden the stores, I know managers at stores are like, well, now we've got almost unrealistic expectations that now next year we've got to top that. And it's like, well, that was kind of a unique situation. You're not always going to be able to continually top the year before. Growth doesn't always work like that.
And the growth may be different, but I do think you need to grow in some way each year. So for example, as far as eBay for me, I would say there was about 2 years where there wasn't growth financially in eBay, but there's growth as far as my inventory and how often I was selling things. So I didn't have to work as hard on eBay. Even now, I don't have to work as hard on eBay. Do I still list every day? Sure, I do. Except for like the last month where I only listed like, I think 2 days. But the fact is my inventory became, larger and larger over time, that it was still growing, but the amount of money I was making was still the same. Now, Amazon, I've always been able to scale every year because you learn, how to find the right items. You learn how to ship faster. You learn different things. And with eBay, if I wanted to put the same amount of effort into eBay that I put into Amazon in Q4, I'm 100% sure that my eBay business would definitely scale. I don't know. You got to look at different platforms and the scalability, right? That's another thing to think about is there something that you need to change, right, to be able to scale even more, right? I've even considered this right now. I want to scale even more, but I'm finding with eBay that I'm like in this tough spot where I'm almost to 3,000 items. I don't know if getting to 4,000 is necessarily going to change how much I sell. But I won't know till I get there, right? So you got to get out there. And
even if you have the time, right? Like the amount of time you spend
Correct.
Shipping and listing, you might get to a point where you can't keep sourcing the same amount and listing even more and shipping out more. Like eventually something's going to give, right? Like if you're used to shipping 5 items a day and all of a sudden you're shipping 20 items a day and you're used to taking 20 pictures a day or listing 20 things, now you have to list 50 to keep that number. Eventually something's going to give somewhere,
Yeah. And you can really, there are people that put the, pedal to the metal and they just go to the 20 listings to 50 listings to 100 listings a day, which is great. But
that's still going to cut into sourcing and
true.
shipping.
But what I'm saying is it's okay to do that as long as you're growing, which I do think you will grow. But I think sometimes there's this unreal expectation that there's going to be exponential growth, and you got to understand different platforms. Like on eBay, I remember at one time I thought if I went from 1,000 to 2,000 items, that my sales make double. And no, that wasn't the case, right? And I could have been really, disgruntled, and I could have been like, eBay's terrible. But no, I had to understand that there's more in play than how many items. Or on Amazon, it's a pretty easy equation. If I ship out more to FBA than the previous year, I sell more and I make more profit as long as my profit margins are the same.
And even there, though, there's the limit of how much you can source, right? So absolutely true. You can,
but then you got to take the next step. Like you got to get a team to source for you.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, so scaling, like you get to a place where some people think that you can continue to scale the way you've been scaling, but eventually you're going to reach your plateau of what you can handle on your own. And, if you're not willing to take that next step of hiring a team and all that stuff, which again, that's scaling, but then there's a cost, right? You might think if I double the amount of sourcing I'm doing, because now I hired a person, well, you're not going to double your money because now you got to pay this person and so you might only be increasing 20%. You might have doubled the amount you're sourcing, but you might only have a 20% increase in your sales because you're paying for somebody else to do a lot of the work. So there's going to be, you can't just think 100% linear. And I think that paradigm shift and understanding that mindset will definitely help to have realistic expectations.
Now, I do want to end on this last part of this section before we get to our hustle of the week and discussing the idea that it's okay if you're not scaling exponentially. I think like, I want to go back to your point, like something has to give, right? And so I have found the times where I'm like super eBay focused, right? And that's all I'm doing all day. And I'm just sourcing, listing, every day and I'm not spending time with my family, I'm not, out with my church, I'm not, just spending time doing nothing, you can burn out really quick. So sometimes it's okay to keep just the standard of living that you're at, right? It's your choice. That's the beautiful thing about reselling is that you can pull that lever when you want to go over 100 miles an hour and just grow your business. And then there's times where it's okay to coast at 65 and just enjoy the scenic drive, right? And that's kind of the stage in life I'm at. I sound really old saying that, but I'm kind of coasting a little bit when it comes to eBay. Now, when it comes to Amazon, I am putting the pedal again like I did last year because that allows me to coast on eBay, come Q1 and Q2. All right. So just some things to think about. All right. Well, there are some things that I can't quit. So much could be filled in right there.
It's true.
AmericanBubbleBoy.com.
That's one of our vices for sure. We cannot quit American Bubble Boy. They've even got
I can't quit you.
They've got 12-step programs to help you get off American Bubble Boy because people easily get addicted to buying great quality bubble wrap at a amazing deal with quick shipping. And American Bubble Boy has been a go-to for our family. I know Orlando uses it a ton. It's nice always having it. And you can even kind of get on like a routine, set a reminder like, oh, I need to buy again, and just keep your store stocked and you're never running out of bubble wrap and worrying about, oh, now I need to drive to Walmart or something and get some bubble wrap that's going to cost you more. And you're not going to be able to get all the different sizes that you might want.
And the quality's not that great.
Yeah. So definitely, if you haven't checked out American Bubble Boy, we have a link in our description and we have a promo code. The promo code is Pure Hustle Podcast, all one word, all lowercase. Give them a try if you haven't yet. And if you've tried them and you like them, let us know in the comments below because I think it's great to just let other resellers know about a great product.
All right. So, hey, if you haven't been following us on social media, we are Pure Hustle Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Make sure to follow us on all three because, let's say Facebook and Instagram, something happens. Like,
yeah,
they randomly after something happens, they just disappear for 6 hours.
Yeah, it can happen.
We'll be on TikTok, or there's a takeover and TikTok goes away forever. Who knows, right? We don't want it to disappear. We're also on Twitter, Pure Soulcast. Did you see all the people that jumped onto like Twitter and like Telegram when it went down last week?
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
That was pretty interesting. All right. Also, you can give us a call, 619-738-1170 at 619-738-1170. We actually have 2 phone calls today that are coming through, that some great stories that we want to share. Also, you can shoot us an email, purespodcast@gmail.com. That's purespodcast@gmail.com. And as always, if you're listening to the podcast, but you haven't caught us yet on YouTube, make sure to jump over, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and click that bell notification. Sometimes we drop some videos that you'll be like, wow, I wish I watched this before because I would have picked this up at a garage sale, or I would have known how to do this. I get DMs all the time. Like I mentioned in the past podcast, like somebody learned about a certain pair of shoes by watching, our videos. And so you don't want to miss out. So check us out on YouTube. Also, thank you so much for the iTunes reviews. They've been really helpful. I think next podcast, we're going to look at some of those reviews. We got a jam-packed episode. So
yeah. So if you want to have your review read on Pure Soul Podcast, go over and leave a review and let us know how much you love the show. And we'd love to read some of the recent reviews. Maybe we even should go back and make it a segment every once in a while, like go through some of our old reviews and see what people said back when we were like just starting out. That might be funny.
I don't know. I kind of worry about the early episodes.
Yeah, it is what it is.
We'll see. All right. It is time now for...
Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah, funky. All right. So our first one comes from Christy, IG handle at moms_closet.
Closets, Texas.
Closets TX. Closets, Texas. Closets TX. Gotcha. Was at a yard sale in a rich area. Those can be really good, or sometimes
unless they're house poor.
That's one thing. Or sometimes people who are very wealthy, like the wealthiest of wealthy, kind of don't have an understanding of what things are worth, and they're like, yeah, $100 for this, because to them it's like, well, I paid $150, it's $100. Like they don't understand that like this is garage sale prices. Like we've got people coming here. Like I eat fast food sometimes, right? Like I don't eat steak dinners all the time. Like I don't have that kind of money. But anyway, so it was in a rich area and saw a bull and looked at the bottom, and it said that the writing on it was made in England. Picked it up for $3 and thinking it would be at least sell for $20. Went home and researched and found that some rare bulls go for over $100 to $250. Listed it on eBay for $199.99. And after seeing an offer while it was on sale, sold an Emma Bridgewater bowl for a best offer of $142.49. Holy cow, $3. Those are the types of things that you, if you're in a rich area, as it were, those types of things are good because you know that they probably didn't go to Walmart to buy their china. They didn't go. They probably have nicer things like that, and maybe they were on vacation and they bought something in England. So those are the kinds of things to look for. Maybe the shoes, like maybe they still wear, Allen Edmonds and those things that sell for good money. But you can find those in a lot of yard sales. But something like this, that's a good thing to be looking for when you're in the rich areas.
Yeah, and the thing what I liked about Christy is that just the made in England was enough for her, and the cost was low, and she did the research, right? And that's the thing, it's research that will allow you to find those awesome sales. So
it's good.
All right, Chrissy. Brandon, second hustle of the week. He was a guy. Remember a few weeks back, I think it was a McDonald's playset, or he sold it for like 100 something, right? Which was pretty cool. So IG handle Katos.collectibles. And this is a crazy story. Like this is one of those where I'm just jealous. Like I wish I had this experience. So went to an estate sale, went in and bought some stuff, but a friend convinced him to go back for more and look for more. He already picked up a Super Nintendo in-box console with 10, I think it was like 20 games. I saw the picture.
Holy cow.
Okay. And again, video game stuff is really hard to find. At least for us, it is. I don't know about the rest of the I keep watching the stuff on social media. People are like, look at this huge haul. I'm like, what? I've not seen that ever out here. While in the basement of the estate sale, after it went back, saw an old work boot box in the corner of the room. Opened it up, and there was a bunch of vintage G.I. Joes.
Ooh, there's a market for that.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? When he said somebody had had text, one of the other resellers I know texted me about some vintage G.I. Joes at the store shall not be named, and I was just like, I'm eating dinner right now. Should have gone. Anyways, but Brandon went back like his friend had suggested, found the box, found all the vintage G.I. Joes, paid $50 for the entire box, listed 11 of the figures. So he has about if I looked at the box, about 50 plus figures. Okay, so listed 11 of them at auction on eBay, right? And I'm thinking about auctioning for some of my items. After 29 bids, sold those 11 figures for $1,146 plus shipping.
Jeez.
That's like hustle of the year kind of status.
That's legit.
So keep us posted, Brandon, about what the entire haul ends up being.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not even touching the Nintendo or all the other G.I. Joes.
Yeah, I need to get in the vintage toy market. I feel like there's definitely money there.
I have my vintage He-Man figures from like a few YouTubes ago.
Yeah.
I
just saw somebody on OfferUp listing like 8 vintage He-Man toys, and they were wanting like $250 for them. So, I mean, I'm assuming they did their research on them, so you might have some money sitting there.
What if we went to it and you clicked on it? It was like my son.
Oh yeah,
he grabbed my inventory and listed it. No,
I was almost wondering. I'm like, are these Orlando's? Is he trying to sell them on OfferUp?
No, I wouldn't do that. There's more money on eBay. All right. Wow. Okay. We have some. You thought these last 2 hustle of the week were great. We have some more great ones. So let's tune into our first one. This is Eric block_party with no A and no O on the block on Instagram. He's done several hustle of weeks, by the way. Long-time listener.
What's going on, guys? This is Eric, a.k.a. Block Party on Instagram. I just want to tell you about a find that I had at a yard sale a couple of weeks ago. I went to a yard sale. It was a big community sale. And we had, and I got there a little bit later than what I wanted to. And, I was talking to the guy and I was buying some stuff and I was like, hey, do you have anything else? And he goes, oh yeah, I've got a basement full of trash. I'm getting ready to throw away all this trash that I have. And it's like some toy boxes, odds and ends. So I was like, all right, let's go take a look at it. We went downstairs, took a look at it. He had like He-Man Castle Grayskull box. He had like that left over. He had a Thundercats box. But then he goes, hey, do you want this box? And he goes behind this file cabinet and he pulls out like the grail of all grails. It's literally the G.I. Joe, It's the Defiant Space Shuttle Complex. The box itself is about almost 6 feet tall. It is massive. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So I definitely took that. I ended up picking up all this stuff. He was getting ready to throw it all away. It was like RC cars and Generation 1 Transformers. And I don't know, it's incredible, all the stuff I picked up. So grabbed the box, obviously took it home, put it up on eBay. It just sold last week for $2,100 on auction.
Wild.
I started the auction at $800 and it ended up taking bids. And the last 3 seconds, it bid up to, it was like $1,700 where it ends. So after shipping and everything else, it ended up at $2,100. So that was like one of the most amazing sales we've had on eBay so far in our 3 years of doing it. So pretty excited about that. I went to go ship it. It was almost over the actual DIMs that you can ship. The next level of shipping up would have been freight, which would have been about $1,000. So to ship on UPS ground, it's basically your maximum that you can go is like 80 inches by 33 inches by about 4 inches. There's like a maximum there. So I was just underneath that. Wow. So I went to FedEx and got their biggest wardrobe box, like broke it down and then wrapped that around the actual box and then shipped it FedEx ground. So pretty awesome sale all around. It just has me like on such a freaking high right now. Really, really happy to be able to share it with you guys. Looking forward to hearing it on the podcast. Thanks guys. Be real. Be relevant, be reselling. I love it. All right. Yeah. Thanks. Bye. Peace.
And that's crazy. It's just a box. And that's kind of stressful even thinking about shipping a box because there's nothing like in there like holding it up. So you really got to brace the outside of the or the inside of the box. So
when he says he wrapped, he literally takes the cardboard and wraps the cardboard around the cardboard. You know how it gets really firm?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you gotta do something because if I was stuck at the place where you had to do freight in a situation like that and I made that much, I would consider just driving to wherever it was.
Yeah, or just fly if you have.
Well, but I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want it to go on the bottom of an airplane either.
That is true.
You know,
hey, you can't do carry on with a massive box.
Yeah. So
okay, that wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive find. I don't even know if I would think about selling boxes like that, but I mean, again,
so this is the grail of GI Joe.
Wow.
Okay, so if you guys, unfortunately, if you listen to the podcast. And we're not going to put a picture on the YouTube, but it's a 1987 GI Joe Space Shuttle Defiant. Okay, if you look that up, it is the grail. It is a piece that most, I would say pretty much all GI Joe collectors hope to have in their collection. I saw a show one time, it goes into the thousands,
wow.
Right? And some people want to complete their set and, boxes are going to, a kid opens it up at Christmas, they rip apart the box. Like, What are the chances that there's an intact box? And that's why it went for so much, but wow. And then Eric, keep us posted. I forgot to ask him in the DMs, like if like the He-Man boxes and all the other stuff, like did he pick those up and is he gonna?
Do those sell too? Yeah, that's awesome.
So wow, all right, good stuff. Again, Block Party BLCK_PRTY on Instagram.
All right, our next one comes from Miss Amy Graham. Let's hear this one.
Hi, guys. This is Amy Graham. I've been listening to you for a while. I love your podcast. It's so helpful. I've been selling on eBay since 2001, and this isn't really a hustle of the week, but I just want to let you know, this really fun story. My husband and I drove about 10 minutes on a Facebook Marketplace ad to go pick up this really cool homemade wooden box that I wanted for my house, and not to resell, but anyway, we drove and the box was full of silverware. And I asked the lady, I said, do I have to take the silverware or can I just have the box? And she said, nope, you got to take everything in for $20. And so we took it, and to me, it didn't look like good silverware, and I'm not into silverware. It's not my niche, but anyway, we got it home and started looking. There were two complete sets of silverware. One had the wooden handles, which I resold on eBay for $60 for the set. And turns out the other set of silverware was sterling. Oh, and I reached out to a metal dealer and sold the set for $750.
Holy smokes.
So I think that I just want to share that story because it's those surprises and those things that you aren't expecting that you find that keeps us in the game. My husband and I are loving it. And when you find something like a diamond in the rough or a hidden gem, that's what keeps us going, and
Or
we
the
have so
silver in
much
the
fun.
box.
So
Yes.
your tips on shipping and all that stuff is the other part that really helps us the most. So keep working hard, and thanks for everything that you do.
Wow, man, that's amazing. That just goes to show, like, again, it that took some, thinking to say, like, I want to actually see if this is, real, because it'd be easy to like say there's junk in this box, empty it, and go set the box in your house, right? And not even do the research, because probably 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's gonna be junk,
Yeah,
right?
but that's the thing. Like, I always
you got to check.
I see this on Instagram all the time. I don't say it enough on the podcast. When you do a bulk buy, look at everything you buy, because sometimes people will throw stuff in and you don't even think it's valuable. And next thing you know, you might find something that's more valuable than anything else that you picked up in that bulk buy.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing one.
Wow, and that was nice because she just went to a metal dealer, right?
Yeah.
So no fees, no shipping, just boom, $750.
Done.
So thanks so much, Amy, for sharing. Hey, the more phone calls, the better. We always love having you on. There's it's like a 2-minute, right?
Yeah. Don't talk for 30 minutes, right? Or we'll have to edit it down. And I can't promise we'll do that. But if you can, just like these ones, quickly, concisely tell your story. We'd love to hear hustles. We'd love to hear tips.
Anything, questions. We want to incorporate more listeners into the podcast.
Yeah, this is your show, right? This is all of our show. This isn't me and Orlando only, right? This is us. It's a community. I love that.
There you go. All right. See, I don't even feel like sharing any more about Hustle of the Week after these few, but it's okay. No, go ahead. What was your Hustle of the Week?
Okay, so I've actually crushed it last week on OfferUp. So if you didn't watch the video that I posted on Saturday with all my OfferUp finds, and I know I had to kind of hide a couple of them, be a little vague because I didn't want to give up a market that I might be in now. But I did really good. But one of the ones that wasn't huge so much profit, but just kind of a hustle as far as the story and how it worked. So I was, and we kind of talked about it at the last podcast. I was at school and I found some dumbbells for just a crazy price. So right now, dumbbells are still going used for pretty much minimum $1 a pound. And that's pretty crazy for used, because that used to be the price for new. And the fact that used is still going for that much instead of maybe 50 cents a pound, which is kind of more typical for used weights. Well, somebody was selling 2 30-pound weights, 2 20-pound weights, and 2 15-pound weights. So I think it's about 130 pounds total for $40. And I was just scrolling through OfferUp and I was kind of constantly refreshing it on my home screen, and they popped up and I'm like, there's no way, right? $40. And so I messaged them. I'm like, hey, can I come? I really want to get these, but I knew I was on my way to come to the podcast after school. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to stop because it's kind of out of the way. I'm like, can I come tomorrow? And I knew it was a long shot. And the guy's like, no, somebody else is already reaching out to me. They're coming tonight. You've got to come by tonight. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I messaged Rolando. I'm like, do you happen to be in the city right now in this area? And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, dang it. So I'm like, all right. And then he starts messaging me back and he goes, yeah, I actually have 8 people messaging me about these right now. This is crazy. He's like, who would have thought a bunch of dumbbells would go for so much? And I was like, well, and here's where I got into, this is the long shot. I was like, I'm not going to be able to pick these up tonight. Somebody's coming to get them. So my long shot is maybe the person will flake, maybe. And the only thing I could think of is, what if I just kind of get on this guy's good side and just let him know that all I basically said is, yeah, the reason you're going to sell them tonight, because he's like, how people flake and I don't want to have people flaking on me. And I said, look, you're going to sell these tonight for sure. You're selling them for a really good price. Weights are hard to come by right now. People are desperately looking for them. You're definitely going to sell them. You could probably even sell them for more if you wanted to, but it's too bad I couldn't get it. Right.
So were you secretly hoping to burn all the other sellers?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, that's not I didn't have a malicious,
no, you were branching out. No, you were branching out.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
It was just a long shot. Cause my thought was, he's going to sell these today. Right. And maybe he does realize oh, am I? Cause if you're getting 8, 9, 10 messages within a few minutes of posting something.
No, the only reason I say that is I've been on the other end of that, where you're the nice guy, but I know people that aren't the nice guys, and you'll be at a garage sale and they see that you have something in your hand that they want. And they're like, oh man, those go for 150 on eBay. It's like, what?
Yeah. They just
Who are you?
Yeah. But
and I've had an offer up too, where I show up to a place and they'll say, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I get all these messages and people are like, oh, you can sell that for way more. That guy that's coming, he's going to rip you off. You should sell it for this much.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, honestly, there's the other end of that, which is, somebody, I mean, technically they could just be like letting somebody know how much it's worth. And my thought is this guy's either one, going to sell it for the $40 that he's trying to sell them for, or two, he is going to, he's going to realize, or he's going to realize that, hey, all these people are interested. I'm going to raise the price. I've done that before of selling things. If all of a sudden you're getting all these offers on eBay, you're going to be like, you know what, maybe I should raise the price on this. Right. So I basically told him, good luck. You're going to sell it. They're highly sought after right now. He ended up messaging me that night and he said, surprise, surprise, the guy who was supposed to come pick them up flaked on me. And he goes, I've got a whole bunch of people reaching out to me, but you seem like a really cool guy. I appreciate your honesty, all of that. And he says, if you want them and you can come get them by, 4:30 tomorrow, they're yours. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I was thinking like, maybe if this guy's rich and he doesn't care about money and it's not so much like he wants that extra $100 that he can make off of these weights, but he's just trying to find like a good person to sell them to. And honestly, I'm going to end up using the weights, right? Like I'm going to sell some of them to make it where I basically get the weights for free. The ones I needed, I need the 30-pound weights. And sure enough, I was able to pick them up and I got them. And when I showed up to the house, I mean, I'm talking mansion, I'm talking 2 sports cars in the driveway, a Mercedes SUV, and a Tesla plugged in. Like, just this guy's got money, so he didn't care about the extra $100 he could make, right? And I was like, it was a long shot. Like I was like, I've got a 1 in 1,000 of getting this item, and it worked out. So the reason it's a hustle is I developed a connection. It just goes to show you don't want to. I could have easily been like, well, who messaged you first? Is the other guy first? Like I messaged you first, and I can be there, but I could have been mean, but I was just like honest, and I was like, hey, no, I totally understand. People are flakes, but don't worry about it. I promise you're going to end up selling these soon. So I was nice, and it worked out. And basically, what I like about it is I'm going to sell. I don't need the 15 or 20 pound weights, so I'm going to sell those, and then I'm going to make enough profit off of that I basically got my 30-pound dumbbells for free, plus made some money.
That's nice. I mean,
that's a hustle.
That other approach works. I got to tell you, and you're bridging because maybe later on, he knows how to contact you and he may have other stuff, right? Hey, this guy dealt fairly with me. Let me know what's going on. And I always tell people this, like, I mentioned this on the podcast, like sometimes we're given a hard time because we haggle and because, we get good deals. We got to understand people are wanting to offload stuff. Like they don't care to sell it for cheap. Like we're not ripping anybody off. That guy was not being ripped off. He just wanted to move stuff.
Yeah, the extra $100 is probably, again, I'm not making judgments, but he probably gives that in a tip when he's going out to dinner tonight. You know what I mean?
It probably cost him more to pick it up if he dropped it.
Yeah. So he wasn't so much concerned about making that extra $100, but yeah, selling it to somebody who, and I'm going to use the weights until they sell. You know what I mean? So it's like they're going to a good home. I'm gonna take total advantage of them. And yeah, I made a good connection with the guy. So we never try and rip anybody off ever. And of course, if somebody's gonna, we're not gonna go to a little kid and say, I'll give you 2 pennies for your 1/4, right? Like we're not manipulating people. But if people are trying to get rid of their stuff out of their house and they're wanting it gone, I'll take it because I've got to do the work of listing it, taking pictures, all this stuff. And, that's fine. I've sold things to people and basically given things away that I probably could have resold, but I didn't want to do the work.
Agreed. All right. So my hustle of the week, I already posted this sale on Instagram and Twitter last week and Facebook. It was the San Antonio Spurs jersey, shooting shirt actually. But I wanted to give the backstory because not everybody, follows our Instagram. So you should check us out on Instagram if you're not, and follow us if you're listening to the podcast. We have... It's funny because we have thousands of followers on Instagram that don't listen to the podcast. We have thousands of listeners on the podcast that probably don't follow us on Instagram. Yep. Right. So check us out. So this was an Instagram story. It wasn't a YouTube. So, I go to this estate sale and, there's people all over the place and people are picking things up. And, it's one of those where you're like, I think all the good stuff is gone. Right. And I see a pile of Rain Spooner Hawaiian shirts that I love picking up. And I start looking through them. And some lady's like, those are mine. I think I shared the story already in the podcast. And I was like, oh. And then, I go into the closet and literally there wasn't anything else left in the closet. It was all a bunch of like Walmart brands. It was like Natural Issue, Puritan, like Wrangler, I think is now a Walmart brand, all those brands. So, but I always recommend looking at closets and estate sales because you never know, because we all have those items, or maybe it's just me, that you just keep that is of value to you, but you're never going to wear. Like, for example, I have a 49ers jersey that I just never wear. Like it just sits in my closet. I don't plan on wearing it, but I don't want to sell it. So it just sits there. I have another jacket that I never wear it, and it just sits there. Now, I recently sold a couple of my vintage starter jackets that I paid like 40 and I flipped them for like 200 or whatever. But that's just because I just got tired of them and I want to get some new jackets. So I always look. And at the very end, behind, a couple other items, there was this shooting shirt. And if you saw on the Instagram, right, it was a dark place. You couldn't really tell what's going on, but I knew it was vintage because anytime you pick up a jersey and it feels rough, it could be like a Sandit jersey, it could be a 90s jersey, and generally it's pretty good. And so it was Champion, it looked old, and then I went home and I did the research and I found that there were some shooting shirts going for like 100, 125, even from the 90s, but I'm like, no, I'm listing this high. So I listed it at $400 and then it went on sale for 25% off. So then it dropped to 300 and I had a bunch of people lowball me. And eventually somebody gave me a good enough offer, and the average cost for everything at that estate sale was $4.50. So I paid $4.50 for the shooting shirt, and it sold, I think, within 2 or 3 weeks for $225 plus shipping.
Nice.
And it's going international. It's going through one of those, where you ship to like a company and then that company ships it to somebody overseas. So don't be scared about those companies either. But yeah, look in those estate sale closets. You never know what you're going to find.
I like it.
All right. Hey, before we move on now to our last reason, and this is good reasons we're going to talk about why people leave reselling, because there is a positive to leaving reselling. It's not always for bad reasons. Let's talk about Skull Shaver real quick. Skull Shaver, I'm digging it. I'm loving it. The other day I was watching a TikTok, and do you know that that guy? His name's, I don't know how to say it, but the guy that like told everybody to buy Bitcoin, like back in, he's this like bald black guy. Defiant, sure. I think is his name. He told everybody when Bitcoin was like $2 to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, and he bought like a ton of Bitcoin. He's like a multimillionaire. But you know what I noticed? He was all clean and dapper, but he had a nick on his head. I'm like, bro, like you got the Lambo, you got the suit.
You're just missing the Skull Shaver.
You need the Skull Shaver.
Yeah. And
so, I even felt like DMing him like, hey, check out the Skull Shaver. Use our promo code PURE. PURE.
Yeah, I just saw a comment that came through on YouTube, and I'm thinking, because it's just a timestamp and I haven't watched it yet, what that timestamp, but it was on our last episode, and I think it was from when you were talking about the lady said, I have a boyfriend, but I like you.
Oh, yeah.
And their response was, it's because of the Skull Shaver.
Yes.
So it definitely could be because of the Skull Shaver.
There you go. So if you haven't picked up Skull Shaver, in case you're wondering what it is, it's a handheld.
It's a shaver for your skull.
Yes. Skull Shaver, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, you've heard of Skull Shaver. You've seen it. They're everywhere. They had a Super Bowl commercial. They forgot to add us in the commercial, like as seen on Piero's podcast. I know they meant to. That would have helped their marketing a little, but it's okay.
True. But I have a lot of people saying, I like you, but I have a boyfriend. So anyways, go to skullshaver.com. Use our promo code PURE, PURE.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about why people leave reselling, but for good reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is reselling might have just been what was needed at the moment.
Yeah. Stopgap, right? Like they need a little bit of extra money to pay some bills.
And this happened a lot.
They want some fun money, right? They want to go on vacation. I want to buy a drone, right? Like how I got into it. So yeah, sometimes people have a set goal. They've got I want to make an extra $1,000 this year so I can buy Disneyland tickets for my family. They reach it and then they're done. They don't want to do a lot of extra work they don't want another job. They just wanted to have Disneyland tickets, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your goal and you understand that, or maybe it's I just need to make ends meet, and then you get a raise at work, you get a better job, something else happens. I don't need to do this anymore, and it's taken a lot of time, and maybe I'll just keep thrifting and garage selling on the side for fun, but I'm not going to stress about, keeping a store at 1,000 inventory.
Yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with walking away. Like if it's something you just did for a while and then eventually you kind of lost, the thrill of it because now you're making way more income at your other job, or you're finding that your current job was way more enjoyable. It's okay. right? I do feel that there's this, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but there's like this underlying sentiment in the reselling community that like if you walk away from reselling, that you're a failure.
Yeah.
That,
Reselling is not a cult, right? Like it's very cult like to, and I even talked about this when I did my my LuLaRoe review. There is one of the things that a lot of cults do, and like even kind of in the LuLaRoe thing, is this: if you walk away or if you question and you start to, move in a different direction, you're going to be ostracized from the community. And that shouldn't be what reselling is. Like, we have friends who we met through the podcast, who we've talked to, we've met up with, we've done things, and then now they do things besides reselling, and we're not like, you're out, right? So if one of our friends on Instagram, somebody that we know, they're like, I don't resell anymore, I'm a realtor now, I make a lot of money, or whatever the situation is, we're not going to be like, that's it, I'm not messaging you back, I'm not. So, the reselling community shouldn't be like that, and people shouldn't be pressured, like, you have to be reselling, you have to be doing this, you have to be doing that, or you're out, right? Like, that's not what makes, we have a common bond, but we also develop real friendships. And so, yeah, don't make anybody feel bad for leaving, because, maybe it was just an ends to a mean, or a means to an end. And that kind of goes on to the next step, or the next point we're going to make is,
no pun intended.
Yeah. Maybe reselling was just a vehicle that was used to get to the next thing. Maybe you used reselling to make enough money so that you can open up that food truck you always wanted to open up. Or you did reselling and you realized, man, I'm getting really good at like managing money and doing these things. I learned a new skill. I'm getting hired by a company to do things because I have the skill now that I didn't have before. Or, man, I've got all of this money, and, now I am able to use it, and I'm able to invest in the stock market, and now I'm making enough money there that I don't need to. So it could have been that reselling was just like the other way, like just a means to an end. And maybe it literally like got you to where you need it. I need, $20,000 to start this business I want to start, and I'm going to resell. And it gave me the tools I needed. Through reselling, I've learned a lot about marketing. I've learned through doing the podcast a lot about a lot of different things that I could use these skills in so many areas of my life now. No,
agreed. And so this is one of those things where I've thought about a lot. Like reselling, it's funny, the other day, I have gotten into crypto. Some of you have, had DM me on the podcast about crypto. And it's funny because I feel like such an amateur when I talk to Mike about crypto, because Mike was doing crypto.
You're way deeper in than I am now.
Well, I am now, yeah. But I would have never gotten into crypto if I didn't have the capital that I got from reselling, right? And so, I got into crypto, and so I learned crypto. Or, we've figured out other ways to make money, whether it be through social media, as far as like we figured out, hey, you could be like a social media manager, or you can, even us, like we started this podcast just to document our journey of reselling. And next thing you know, we started getting sponsorship deals, right? And we've gotten some nice sponsorship deals at times here and there. And so what happens is as a reseller, it becomes a vehicle to something else, right? I know a lot of resellers that they started reselling and then they just scaled to a point that they were like, now I have enough money to invest in a house to flip. And then they started flipping houses. Or some that went from eBay to Amazon FBA to private label to now they have their own company that isn't even private label. They're just their own brand. And that's what they do, right? So lots of opportunities come up. So it's not always a bad thing when people walk away. I'm thinking even myself right now, I'm not saying I'm leaving reselling or the podcast, but right now we're at a time where there's a lot of opportunities in education, right? And I've been a school administrator. I've been a teacher for the last 19 years. Mike is also, but now with all the technology around, like for example, in one of my classes I teach once a week, I have students from other part of the country in my class, right? And I'm an independent contractor. And so I'm able to, with the technology, with Zoom and everything, I can still run that class just as efficiently as if they were in the classroom with me. And so what if I scale that to, I do that, I do that 5 times in one day, and it brings in enough revenue where I only have to do like part-time reselling, right? Just things to think. I'm not saying I'm going in that direction, but I was thinking about that the other day. Like, what if I could scale this, right? Because in the end, I'm more about the time freedom than I am about the money. The money is nice. Don't get me wrong. I have a bigger house that I live in now. I'm able to, get one of my kids in private school who wants to be at a certain school. I've been able to do a lot of things because of reselling, but the freedom, the ability to just go on a trip and not have to worry about income, right? My goal, I don't want to talk too much, but I want to get to a point where like when I'm 50, like I have passive income, right? And then I could pursue a PhD and I could become a professor and blah, 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 blah. And I'll do all that. And reselling does that for a lot of people, right? They get to a certain stage where they made enough capital and they figured out other streams of income. And they got to a place where, you know what? It's time to walk away from reselling. I mean, I got to tell you, when I'm 80, I'm not looking forward to picking up totes full of merchandise anymore, right? I'm not looking to do all that stuff anymore. I want to do something different. I'm never going to retire, but I want to do something different. So is there anything you want to add? I felt like I just talked so much.
Good. Yeah.
So, but hey, so there are some bad reasons, right? Like people quit reselling, right? They start too early, right? They don't know enough. They're impatient.
Yep.
Right? And they cause themselves too much work by doing some bad sourcing, or
they're not adaptable.
They're resistant to change. And then there's all the positive things we just talked about, right? Leveling up, scaling, learning new ways to make money, vehicle to something else, and brand new opportunities. So make sure you avoid the negatives and embrace the positives, and hopefully reselling gets you to that next level, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And with that being said, make sure to be real,
Be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.